Hey, what's up? My name is Alex. I'm a professional music producer. Today I want to analyze Devil Trigger from Devil May Cry 5, which was requested by one of my Patreon users, which is where you can request any track you want me to break down. So, let's start. Freaking brutal. Now, there's stuff to say already, because I think Kesey Edwards, the composer for this track, he's a fan of Devil May Cry, but I also think he played Final Fantasy X. Because if you notice, this track basically starts with the brutal combination of growls mixed with some guitar stops. They have growl and guitars, like down, which reminds me very clearly of a Final Fantasy X track where you have the same thing happen. Personally, when I was little, that track scared the shit out of me because I wasn't into metal that much. But now, damn. This is way more than just metal though, because you notice straight away you have these crazy risers underneath that. You know, like very electronic risers and electronic drums that give you a sense that this is probably much more than just metal. Man, I love this lyric. That's when you hear that as you're playing DMC5 the first time, you're like, geez, like you're like, I need to kill stuff. Like this dark vocal here in the lyrics, like the darkest of nights falls around my soul and the hunter within loses control. That is so relatable from a perspective of different characters. Like it could be a theme from Jin Kazama from Tekken, Vincent Valentine from Final Fantasy VII, Naruto even because he has a demon inside of him, and also every Bloodborne character basically. But it's also very relatable for that edgy boy that we all thought we were in high school. Yeah, I had that phase as well. What I love the most about this, other than the vocals though, is the sound of, you know, the music. If you notice straight away, there's lots of guitars and stuff like that, but there's lots of electronic elements as well. And the thing that you notice the most is this like 4/4 beat. Which is quite cool because you have this kick, right? 3, 4. What I like the most is like, it has this sort of like reverse snare once in a while. So this feels way more like club music rather than just, you know, metal music. Now, there's guitars and synthesizers. The guitars are doing something like this. Doesn't sound so good on this emulation. But... Or at the end, you have that. And that happens at the end where you have the movement to like the vocal part. That's very cool. But anyway, other than the guitars, what you have is also some synthesizers. Imagine the legendary Techno Viking dancing to this stuff. When you mix it all together, you get this sort of like... Again, this sounds like shit because I didn't mix it or anything, but this sort of like sound, like this 4/4 beat with massive guitars is what industrial music is sort of like. And also this sort of genre is usually accompanied with very dark, raspy vocals sang on a very low tone like this one's. Now, the way in which you can make these vocals stand out in an arrangement like this is to add a lot of distortion and stuff to them. That, like, low tone plus distortion feels very demonic. It reminds me of a track from Final Fantasy XIV where they did just that. What is it like when you pull back the curtain and realize every wrong is right? Your world is rusted like a dirty razor. The edge is calling tonight. If you want other examples of electronic and industrial metal, you should probably listen to some Celldweller and Blue Stally. Thank me later. In the second half, the guitars are doing the same thing pretty much, and you have some riser building the tension up. And then the final vocal here, you know, that reminds me of Little V. I don't know why. That is just like the voice of Little V Mills, the guy who made the legendary Devil Trigger cover. And a riser, for those of you who don't know, is very used in electronic music. Are these sounds that, you know, this is Ali Edwards' voice. That sort of female voice, it's like badass and vulnerable at the same time. I don't know why. Like, it just sounds super cool. Like, it sounds human. And also the lyrics of Ali in this part kind of seem to be referencing the way in which you're supposed to be playing this game, or in which Nero kind of fights, you know? It's quite cool when a game is so self-aware that the music itself is about the way in which the protagonists kind of face the struggles and stuff like that. Like, it makes you feel into the character even more, which is why Takeover from Persona 5 freaking kicks ass. Gonna be a show to remember. Takeover style to boogie down. Now, in terms of music, what I love about this part is that we went from industrial metal to actual drum and bass, because the pattern now is something like this. So this sort of pattern, as you just heard in the pendulum example, is very common in drum and bass, but underneath that we have this sort of super saws. Now, next up is the most important moment on the song. That is called the hook of the song. The hook is the most important element because it's what makes people addicted to a song. I think the first time that everyone listened to Devil Trigger, the thing they took home is this, like bang, bang, pull my devil trigger. That's like the phrase that makes you trigger, literally. And if you hear that, you're like, oh shit, now I have the song stuck in my head. If you don't believe me about how effective hooks are, well, if I say, think about your game, nothing comes to mind, right? But if I say you'll never see it coming, now you're thinking about Last Surprise. Why? Because Last Surprise is basically written in a way to build up to the moment where the singer goes, you'll never see it coming. The same is happening in Devil Trigger, and this is very common in pop music as a way like to create earworms, pieces of music that gets in your head and never get out. So in this case, Devil Trigger is doing something very smart. Like, this is the only moment in the song where everything stops completely except for the vocals and a bit of the guitar. So it's like they really want you to notice this moment where she says, pull my devil trigger. And after she says that, you know, the cool thing that happens is that the track becomes even heavier. So it's as if literally your devil trigger has been pulled. So it feels like the whole song is a build-up to this moment. And what I love the most about this melody is that it's actually pretty dark. Like, if you transition this to piano, this is what you get. This, stripped down of all the sound design, sounds way more sad and more dramatic. But we can take this even up one notch. If we slow this down and rearrange it slightly, get a more dramatic feel. This is, except for the final part here, is the same exact melody, just rearranged a bit differently in terms of the chords I used, but still, we're in the same key, it's the same song, and now it's way more sad. The beautiful thing that Casey Edwards and Ali Edwards did here is that they basically used a context of very high energy, hype song, like metal guitars and loud industrial drums and stuff, but at the core, we have a melody that is actually very sad. That is a beautiful, I think, metaphor to represent a character that is actually like that. High energy, he's a fighter, but all his heroic deeds and action and his fights are based on an inner burden that is actually quite dark and sad. And I think this is a quite nice metaphor for Nero's depression after being called dead weight for all of his life. So that's on point, I think. You know, it's pretty cool. I made this video because some of you guys asked me on my monthly request thread on Patreon, which is where you can request me to do any track from any video game you like. However, I'm considering to start a Twitch page where I just sometimes hop on live and you guys can send me whatever track from whatever video game you like, and I will listen to it and we all vibe together and comment it together, and I will give you my take in 5 minutes on the track that you sent me. This is because I don't always have the time to make full-fledged videos like this one. It takes a lot of work, but on Twitch, doing it live, it will be very fast and very, cool way to chill together, and then for you to hear my thoughts on music and for me to actually listen to music that I never heard before and stuff like that, because what I like to do with these videos here is I like to make videos about music from games that I know, so I can comment how they work in terms of the story of the game. I don't want to break down music that I don't really know, but it would be cool to have that on Twitch because it's less serious and stuff like that, and that will give you guys, some of you who don't have the financial situation to support someone on Patreon, to still have your favorite tracks be heard by me and commented by me. So if you're interested in that, I'm gonna leave a link to my Twitch in the description of the video. Subscribe there, and if there's enough demand, I'm just gonna make that stream. Maybe even this week we could do one about Final Fantasy VII Remake, where I just listen to some remake tracks and just go over what are my favorites. Link down below. That's all for this video. I'll see you in the next one with another song. Bye.